Good morning, everyone, and welcome to GPA Trading Services live trading class on this Tuesday, May the 13th, 2025. As you know, today is Tuesday, Gary's Market Forecast or GMF. It's the heads up on what's going down in the markets. But first, we have very specific rules of engagement. Those include the following: do not trade with money you cannot afford to lose. Always trade with protective stops. Make certain the 4 hour, the 1 hour, the 30 and the 15-minute time frames align prior to trading with the MPA PE5 version 5.0 software. Also adhere to very strict money management rules, which includes never risking more than 2% of your entire account balance on any one given trade. For options friends, never risk more than 5% of your entire account balance on any one given options trade. And finally, all information provided by GPA Trading Services is for your educational purposes. So please give us a moment as we open up the charts. All right, ladies and gentlemen, picking up with the dollar index on the monthly chart. High level overview. Wave one is done. We're working on stair stepping lower. Most recently, we got a new low and we're bouncing. I still think there's a good chance we're probably going to rally toward the daily Magic Fibo line before we then reverse. This level is an important support zone. It represents from this prior swing point low the 618 retracement. So that's why I'm watching it very closely, because once we start to break below that zone, that 96 and down to 94, then it sets the tone. We could start going down to 85 and 82 zone, which gets awfully close to our target zone down here. So keep an eye on that. Jumping into the charting platform, we can see that this looks like we may, it's possible, Mr. Tucson, we could finish here and right in and just start breaking down and we make the new low. But we're not far from our little friend up here. Nice little rally the last few days. So it wouldn't be out of the question, as this is pushing lower. And as you start pushing up the next several days, this might even start flattening out just a touch. But it wouldn't be out of the question to go up and test this before then making a new low. Kind of warned you about this, that the dollar bouncing off that 618 would likely go and grind a bit higher. Even though it started to chop around in the zone, it did not break the 618 to the downside, which when opened the door to go make a new low. Then this current low here, that didn't happen. It went up, held, bounced, and sure enough, we got another little grind higher. So we got lows, highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs. So I'm not convinced that this is the end and we're ready to go breaking lows. Probably want to go up here and test this. So those of you in euro dollar and pound dollar trade, we may see those pull back a little further, as these dollar could potentially go up a little further. But I'm not looking for a breakout. I'm looking for a reversal when we get up into this extension. Although you can see from the prior low, high, higher low, we already reached the 1448. It's possible it could be done. All right, this does look like a three-wave type of move. It's overlapping chopping, so it's not a beautiful five-wave move up by any stretch. And this wouldn't look right. If that's wave one, that's two, this is three, this is four, and extended five. Wave three can't be the shortest, so that can't be right. So there's some rules that kind of help us to say, wow, this might be the beginning of a five-way up, three down, five up, and we could potentially go breaking out. Not impossible, but it's extremely low probability. So far, so good. So in closing on the dollar, I think there's a good chance we're probably grinding grunt our way, probably testing up here into this Magic Fibo line. And that Magic Fibo line is included with our MPA PE5 software, as you well know. So make sure you have this on every chart. Without question, make sure you have this on every chart. All right, so What does that mean for the euro dollar and pound dollar? I believe there's a chance we could see if the dollar does end up grinding a little further, the euro could grind a little lower and come visiting the magic fibbo to the downside, where the dollar would visit the magic fibbo to the upside. So this wouldn't be out of the question, and it might set up another good buying opportunity for us to then reverse and go breaking out toward our next target, which is that 118.50 up here. Uh, Months back, when we discussed this swing point low, that this is a good opportunity to go long, we would at least visit the magic fibbo. We did that. Then we started breaking above that 108. We talked about that weeks and months in advance to say, look, your target should be 113.60, 114.95, basically 115. And where did we go to? Right to it. No surprise, after reaching extensions, you get a pullback back toward the magic fibbo to then set the tone for the next run. Amen? Well, what if this isn't a run and the dollar goes breaking out and we start pushing to new highs and this thing starts pushing to new lows? I don't see it in the cards. We got a lot of support zone. This whole area, which was former resistance, should now be support. So we can actually change the color of this zone and change that to support, because that's certainly what it's going to act like when we start coming down in this zone. And that same zone that was former resistance support will happen to be my 618786 zone we discussed on the way up to this target. It also would be an ideal place for the big support to kick in, along with the magic fibbo, to set up the bounce for a new high, this new high here, targeting that 118.52. What about the pound dollar? Pound dollar's been hanging up pretty good here and holding up pretty good. And we're kind of retesting that little swing point before we tested the magic fibbo. But that's typical. You can get these bounces off the magic fibbo you saw on the original surge higher during the pound's big run. We popped to a new high, then we went to a new high, retested before continuing. Then we got our bigger pullback we were discussing. And remember, a few weeks to a couple of months back when we were talking about this beginning of the year, that this was a good idea to go long on the pound dollar because we were expecting at least to get back to magic fibbo. We did that en route to these targets. I even mentioned I would look for this to go breaking above the magic fibbo, come back to retest it as it grinded higher. Well, there you go. So we've done it here. The euro, we haven't touched the magic fibbo. We kind of dipped and then went ripping to those targets. This one we did reach it, and we're still not to these original targets up here, that 136, 137.97. So these pullbacks are great opportunities because we're still at a 77% chance, 75 area, that we're going to go to 136, and a 70 plus, we're going to go to 137.97. So these dips should be likely opportunities to go and get some more pippage to the upside. Again, could we go a little bit deeper? Sure. From that low to that current high, 618, the zone, kind of like the resistance on the way up to these targets, it should be the support on the way down. So if the dollar does pop a little higher, these should drop a little lower. But I'm looking for a reversal zone somewhere in that, say, 30 to 29 area, 28.80 up to 30.30. So a couple of hundred points that we should look for this to hold as support, to look for a reversal out of there, kind of like we did in this big reversal zone. We dipped into it, we grinded our way before we went exploding higher, even 1,000 pips higher from this low down here, 121. We made it up to 134. That's like 1,300 pips, and we're still not there. So the more we dip, especially into this zone, maybe we come visit the magic fibbo to bounce once again, kind of like we did over here, to set up a big run, and the next big run should get us to pay dirt up here at our 1448, 136.20 area and the 1272, 137.97. Dollar yen getting a nice little pop out of this. Do I think this is ready to go breaking out? Not really. I don't see this potentially breaking out when our dollar starts reversing. I expect we're probably going to continue our target down in that 136.80, 134 zone. We brought that up several months. We hinted at the idea several weeks to months ago when we started breaking below this 146. It would set the tone. We were going to go to 136. We got a big run down, about 700 of those 1,000 pips. And now we got, it looks like a three-wave correction coming. And again, as the dollar runs into the Magic Fibo line, this dollar yen will probably run into the Magic Fibo line, and we could potentially see this big reversal down. Be careful because we're getting into some prior lows and these prior low highs, and now we got some prior highs into this almost new high. Yes, it could go breaking out. Well, what about the markets? I think the markets are still going to give us the big correction, and we get the correction. This should help this correct as well, because when our markets go down, risk off, people tend to run to the yen for safe haven. And if the yen starts strengthening and our dollar reverses and the dollar gets weak, while the market's running to the yen for safe haven, when we get the pullback, then this sets up the next push to these lows, right? So be careful with this thinking, ooh, we're going to go breaking out. Our markets are recovering. They're going to go to all-time highs. Maybe. I still think there's a good chance that can happen, but I do think we're going to get a nice hearty pullback. I'm going to go over that in a moment, but that sets up this zone. If you're long the euro dollar and you took advantage of this nice bounce of several hundreds of pips, if you got in at the bottom around 140 and you're sitting here almost 800 pips later, I would definitely be taking some off the table because I don't see this going breaking out. I see this getting rejected more than I see a breakout. But either way, like the old saying is, you never go broke taking profits. I would definitely consider taking aggressive profits at this area because this thing could reverse and we still have a 75% chance we're going down to 136. Other than we reverse, that's only gives us 25% chance we're going to go breaking and making some new highs versus a 75% chance we're going to end up with another lower high, another lower low to achieve that original target. Where did that come from? The prior low to the high, we broke that 146, so that's a 75% chance at that point you're going here. And yes, we made a big move, 700 of the 1,000 pips toward that target, but we didn't reach it. So the fact that we're grinding back up, look for a lower high, lower low, still has that 75% chance we're coming visit down here, then the 25% chance we're potentially breaking out. So due to that bounce, logic would say take those profits. Pound yen's been holding up fairly well as well as of late. But again, we're retesting the prior downtrend of lower high lines. Yes, it looks like, ooh, this could be very bullish. Maybe we do go up a little bit more, 196, 197 area that we go up and visit. But again, what happens when we get the market correction? Markets tend to go toward the yen for safe haven. Then that's likely going to strengthen the yen and the pound and the euro. When our dollar starts tanking lower, those are going to go higher, but yet the pound yen could still get the correction down. So I'm definitely watching this for future trade setup, whether it takes 6 months, a day, a week, whatever. When we start closing below this 186, 184 area, when it closes below, we had a big rejection wick into that zone, but it didn't close. We always talk about the body of the candle, not the wick. This is why. And we got to reverse a lot of that. So when we start closing with a candle body below these swing points around 185, this 184.50 area, basically this swing point here in here, we start taking that out, then we have 1,000 pip trip down here. So I'm watching that like the dollar yen already set this up. The pound yen has not, but I do think it will come to pass. All right, there you go. So let's continue. Looking at SPX, we're in the beginning, the top of that danger zone. Yes, the markets are rallying. Ooh, we got to deal with China. Well, that can easily be canceled as fast as it's trying to get underway. So even with the tariffs and the lack of tariff talk, and oh, we're going to give a 90-day pause, this is in still the danger zone for that correction. Now we have a couple of options here looking at this move. If we do continue to break out, then sure, we could get that blow off top. I've been looking for this. But if we get this early, this resembles something that happened during the last financial crisis, right? Anybody remember? What happened during the last financial crisis of 2007? What did the SPX do? The market, S&P, what did it do? Well, let's go back and take a little road trip. We'll go to the weekly so I can get back to 2007 fairly quickly. And we can go visiting what happened during that 2007. So let me zoom this in, stretch that out, bring this up. And this is what I'm talking about right here. Get a moment to get that into perspective. And we can see, doesn't look like much. This is a weekly chart, so doesn't look like much. But we had that big dip and we corrected into the financial crisis where we made a new higher high, right? So you can see that we had a nice huge dip. Doesn't that recommend it look like what we just went through? And we got this like little V bounce, and we're like, yeah, this is beautiful. Ooh, life is great. And we broke all-time highs. And what happened after that? The financial crisis came into play. So I'm looking for this type of move, whether it's this, we go to a quicker high, or we get the correction I'm looking for in a more substantial into the 64, 66 blow off top. Either way, we got a correction, massive correction. Elizabeth, I'm coming to join you, honey. Here comes the big one, is around the corner. Is this where we are now, where we just barely go to some new all-time highs and then we get a crash? Or do we get the rejection and get a bigger correction and then we grind into the fall, late in the year perhaps? Then we get that blow off top. So this is what is concerning me. If we do get this to break out without a correction and we go to some all-time highs, this could be in the cards quicker. Whereas if we stop and we get another retracement toward that 618, I'm going to show you on the chart in just a second, and exactly what I'm talking about, and what type of correction we get that move in, that could set the tone. Maybe we've already topped out and we don't get to all-time highs. We take this route where we go quicker to an all-time high, then the big one comes, or we get that blow off top, which is the one I'm still leaning toward. That would lead us with the correction first. Then we grind into fall, maybe into the year type of thing, where we would then go into the blow off top. What is that referencing? That's referencing right here on ES. I got it. No, I can just do it right here. Where it looks like we're attempting to break out of this danger zone, right? From the prior high to the low, we're pushing the extremes of the 786. Well, does that mean we're definitely going up here? I still think this is my blow off top zone, yes, but This just doesn't look like it's ready to go straight up there. We've had quite the run. I think we need a rejection and a correction back down. So looking at this level, we might go a little bit higher from this low to that high to this higher low. We're kind of pushing that limit right now, and we might go as high as this 59.90 area, right? See, right around 6,000. So this could be that extension that we might be looking for us to then get the correction. So be careful in this zone. I know it looks like we're breaking out of the danger zone, and your first thought should be, well, yeah, we're going to 63, 65. We got a 70+% chance. We're going to go up here. Let's go straight up. Well, if we continue at this pace and we do go up and break a new high, we might not get the blow off top. We might just get a slight higher high like the SPX back in 2007. And then the big one comes. I would prefer, and I'm telling you to be very cautious right now. I did expect us to do this. This is 100%. We talked about it from this low. We were going to go test this zone. But I wanted to see that correction. We did get a 618 to this point, and a couple of weeks back, what did I say? Man, this is a great buying opportunity for us to get at least back to this 56 to 5900 zone. Well, guess where we are? We're right in the thick of that. See if I can get that out of there. Let me close that. There we go. 5900 zone. So this is the area which is very dangerous for us to get this correction. When you mean correction, are you talking about the big one to make new lows below 4,000? No, I'm talking about a beautiful 618 retracement from the low to the current high. So maybe we go just a few more points, somewhere between 59 and 6,000. But this is as good as area as any, maybe a little bit higher. And then we would look somewhere between that 53. So if we stop now, we're around that 5,300 area. If we go a little bit higher, it raises it a little bit. Maybe we come back to 54, 53 to still 5,000 range. So I'll stretch this up a little bit more to get it more in tune with where the current price action is. So even if we stop here, we're in the zone. Even if we pop a little bit more, I still want to see a nice little correction. Be extremely careful. So I don't see it. I mean, trade talks are going well, this, that, and the other. There's no reason to see that type of correction coming here. The markets don't need a reason. It's the technical picture. So is this likely to continue to go up and make a blow off top? It's possible. But I don't see this just going straight up without some sort of correction. I've been warning you about this correction, and I still think we're at the crossroads of this giving us a correction. The question is, what type of correction? Is it going to be three wave? If so, and it holds in this zone, then this sets up the ideal go off for the blow off top, and we push into late fall, early next year. What if we start getting the correction, it turns into a five wave? Then that's a problem, because if we go five waves down followed by a three wave up to make yet another high, low, lower high, that's up sets up the big Elizabeth, I'm coming to join you, honey. And that probably sets the tone that this all-time high here is the end, and we don't get the blow off top. So be extremely careful. Right now, we're still, it looks like we're breaking out of the danger zone, but this is today's candle. The body is what counts, not the wick. So we could get a rejection, or we could go up a little bit higher to set up the correction. So in my humble opinion, right, can't no buy, sell to hold recommendations. I can't tell you what to do. But if I was taking this bounce we were discussing, I would definitely be taking some profits, and I would look for a correction to come back down. If I'm wrong, then no harm, no foul. Yes, we could go higher, but we need that correction more. And I prefer this stance where we get a three wave out of this to come down somewhere around that 53 to 5,000 zone in a three wave down, followed by the big move up into the fall. And we get a new all time high pushing up toward our blow off top zone. Still, we've been talking about this for the last few weeks. It's about the correction. And even the other day when I said, this is not what I was talking about, we still need a bigger degree correction coming off of this ultimate move so far. So is it going to be three waves? Is it going to be five waves? This was where the rubber will meet the road and tell us, do we get the blow off top, or do we get the setup for a five down, followed by the three correction, followed by Elizabeth, I'm coming to join you, honey, and then we're likely not going to see a new high. So we got a couple of things going. If we do the SPX back in 2007, financial crisis, we did this big correction, we did a little V, and we got a slight higher high, and then we went kerplunky. Or do we get this correction into this zone, setting up the three wave, which would give us a push to that blow off top, pushing us into the 63 and change, 64 to 6600 zone? I like that one best still. Believe it or not, that's the one I'm looking for. So why am I saying be careful here? I'm looking for a three wave correction out of this. If I get the correction I'm looking for, and it turns out it's five waves, and then we see a three wave correction off of that, then my hopes of this happening becomes no dice. So it's all in the cards when this plays out. Now, in ahead of time, we kind of give you big insight where we think markets are going. Right now, like I said, with that dollar yen trade, go ahead and take your profits. This thing could reverse. I do the same right here. In the short term, I do look for a correction. If we do get a blow off top, that makes me even more nervous, where we get this little push higher now. So I'm watching today's price action to see what happens. And we start clearing above this 6,000, then sure, it sets the tone. We could go ahead and push to a new all time high, but it also speeds up the clock. If this just keeps going straight up now, it speeds up the clock for Elizabeth, I'm coming to join you, honey, to happen sooner than later, as opposed to Ian, James, Mr. Tucson, Harold. We get a correction now that could allow us to grind higher into the fall, maybe even into the end of the year. And what's going to set up this big Elizabeth, I'm coming to join you, honey? Something like a fiat currency failing. And I'm not talking about the US dollar. Anything can happen. Even the US dollar can fail the way they print money, but that's not what I'm thinking. I'm thinking more like China. China's struggling. Maybe under the backseat office discussions of this trade deal, China has always been buying a lot of gold. I mean, massive tonnage of gold. And in April, they were kind of break even where they're starting to sell like million pounds or whatever, million tons of gold, whatever it was. They sold, I don't remember the exact number, but they sold a good bit of gold. In the big scheme of things, it's not a lot of their gold. But if their currency fails and they sell all of their gold, which would tie into my big gold heading down to 28, 2700 zone, and they start selling all their gold, well, that's what I'm talking about. Some fiat currency, it could be China because they are struggling. And they've always been huge buyers of gold. And if they start being huge sellers of gold, that doesn't bode well for their fiat currency now, does it? So there's a little food for thought out there. Could it be that that sets up the Elizabeth, I'm coming to join you, honey, and we get the big, before we break seven, we go breaking four, and what's below four is our monthly Magic Fibo, and it's down in this 33 to 3,500 zone. So you're talking massive move I see coming no matter what happens. We get this higher high, all-time high first, and it happens a little sooner, or we get the correction I'm looking for, followed by the blow off top into the 64 to 6,600 zone as we push in the late fall, early, maybe end of the year, early next year type of thing. Then we get the bigger one. It's still on the cards. So this little correction I'm looking for is somewhat little, but it could be upwards of, if we're at 5,900, we could come to 5,300. That's 600 to upwards of 900 points. That's a pretty big correction, right? When you think about it. But that's the correction I want to see before we then go blowing off top. The bigger thing will come. Is it the commercial real estate bubble burst? Is it a fiat currency like the China's currency exploding? Something's going to happen and they're going to write it off as that, but that's the technical picture that's on the chart. So, in closing, we're at the cusp of a critical zone. It looks like it just wants to keep going and, ooh, let's just keep buying and buying and buying. Well, you remember our fear and greed? I believe that's on here somewhere. Is it on this one? Or is it on my other one? Let's check over here. Fear and greed. There it is. Remember, it wasn't long ago when we were at extreme fear, right? A week ago, we were in fear. A month ago, we we're extreme fear down to 3. I mean, we were pegging this over here. Now look at us. We are moving toward extreme greed. So the more this pendulum swings into the extreme greed zone, the more likely we're going to get the markets to correct. Just like I was saying early, when we were at extreme fear over here, that's why I was looking for that bounce we got. So this is one of those sentimental values where what is the sentiment of the market? And when you're at extreme fear, look for market bounce. When you're at extreme greed, look for the markets to pull back. So we're moving into the, remember I even talked about here, we're due to come over to the greed side. We're there. We're almost pushing into extreme greed. And what happens if we get that blow off top? We're going to be sitting over here setting up the lookout below. Or we start to get the correction, we start neutralizing back from the greed side, extreme greed side, not extreme greed here, but the full side of the greed mark, and we start neutralizing back, maybe to a slight bit into the fear zone to give us that correction, followed by then another push into the extreme greed side as we get the blow off top. But we use this as our barometer. And if we start pegging way into here, just like we were not long ago into extreme fear, the market bounced heavily. Well, the market's going to drop heavily when we start getting to the extreme greed side of things. Fair enough? All right. So let's continue. So this is why I'm telling you, please take profits if you took advantage of that bounce. Don't go all in and buy a bunch of calls expecting we're definitely going up here. I still think there's a good chance we get that blow off top. But is it right now? I think we'll get a slight higher high. And I mean, on this chart, it doesn't look like much, but you know, 200 to 400 more points is nice little run as opposed to a slight higher high. Back on that SPX during that time frame, and it went back to that current price action. So let me go back to where we were to give you an idea what we're talking about and zoom in on this. So, Ian, we're talking a slight higher high, not a massive hundreds and hundreds of points higher. But let's see if I can get to those levels. Bear with me while I bring that up. Well, we had a swing point high of 1555, and then we topped out after the of 1576. So you're talking 20-point difference. And that's on a weekly chart. Let me make sure I got my high. 1555.90. And this went to 1561. No, right there. 1576. So yeah, about 20 points. That's what I mean by a slight higher high. And then the big one happened. So I really don't want to see ES and those just go ripping to new highs right now. I'd prefer to get our correction in, followed by that three-wave correction, that is. Then we go for the big blow off top, which would not push us by a simple handful of points higher. We're talking 3 to 4 to 500 points higher. Amen? So that's the difference we have if we go blowing, make all-time new highs now. We're likely to get a slight higher high before something big happens, or we get the more projected move that I'm looking for. Move this out of the way and look for that more projected move where we get the three-wave correction followed by, let me bring this to current price action on ES, that we get the correction out of the zone in a three-wave. So in closing on the ES, be careful. Sure, this could go popping up here. It could. But if we get this thing just to keep grinding higher and higher, and then you hear, ooh, we're at all-time highs without any sort of correction coming back down, like what type of correction we're looking for. This pop come back down at least to the Magic Fibo to bounce and go up. It's better than this thing just keep drifting higher. Because if we keep drifting higher, we probably won't make it to the 64, 6600. We might make it to 6200, right? Come up to this zone, and then we could have the big one. So be extremely careful in this zone. I much prefer a three-wave correction out of this, which would set up the more pronounced blow-off top into 64, 6600 zone, and that would push us in the late fall, maybe end of the year. Amen? Now, well, Gary, does that mean we're guaranteed without a doubt to make all-time highs again? If we get a five-wave correction out of this, followed by a three-wave back up to a lower high, then that sets the tone. This is probably the all-time high we're going to see, and then we get the bigger move down. So all roads, whether we get a slight higher high than the move, or we get this correction I'm looking for, followed by the blow off top, or we get a five-wave here, three-wave correction, and this is the top. All roads are leading to Elizabeth, I'm coming to join you, honey, as we move into the next 6 months or so. I mean, we're in May, maybe end of the year, 7 months, maybe a year, maybe we push it out into 2026, but I'd be extremely careful. Amen. So ideally, what we want to see is a three-wave correction that brings us somewhere around that 5,300 to 5,000 in a three-wave move. If that happens, then this would be a great buying opportunity for us to then reverse and go blowing off 1,000+ points. If we get to 53, we should go around 64, 1,000+ points. If we go to 5,000, that still leads us 1,400 to 1,600 point zone. A big move, right? Now we're talking ES. Remember, die and go to heaven for trading E-mini to get a point or two. Man, that's awesome. I die and go to heaven on a point or two. Well, we're talking 1,000+ points. If we can get a three-wave correction out of this into this support zone of my low, high, higher low, 618 zone, that's right around that 5,300 would be ideal. After a three-wave correction, bingo. Now we're talking over 1,000-point highest probability outcome. If this turns into a five-wave followed by the three-wave, then this is probably our all-time high we're going to see for some time. If we continue to blow off a new top, just straight up, I don't really call it a blow off top, like that SPX, then Ian, maybe we get a little bit higher high, slight higher high, then it sets up the big one. So again, what's the common denominator in all this? Big move down, or we already had the beginning of that move, and this ends up with that 5-3 correction setting the big move down, and this is the all-time high. What's my percentages? I still think this is the biggest route right here. After we get a three-wave correction down into this zone. So this is what I'd love to see. And I'm telling you right now, my ladies and gentlemen, my friends and members here, that if we get this, man, I am looking to smoke this thing back up to the upside. Just like I talked about, this was a great opportunity, actually, that direction, right there, that we got that 618 bounce. Let's go ahead and look for this to go at least back into this danger zone and visit the Magic Fibo. We talked about that many times, that we were going to go up, continue to grind the Magic Fibo, go back weak. We're expected to grind up to the Magic Fibo. We talked about the correction, we got it. Then we started focusing on this move back to the Magic Fibo. And when we got that little 618 bounce, it was all about continue, expect to continue, and move up to the Magic Fibo. Then now I'm talking about that retrace from the danger zone. We're in the danger zone. I still expect the markets to retrace from the danger zone. That hasn't changed. Here we are. Actually, over here we are. And the danger zone is right in the thick of it. So be extremely careful. Got it? Well, what about NQ? It's like ditto. It's right at the top of our danger zone. This looks great, doesn't it? Well, we're breaking out, dude. Man, you want to load the boat and go long here because we're going up to 23, 24. Maybe we blow off top up here at 26,000. What are you waiting for? I'm waiting for that big three-wave correction. That's what I want to see. So if you took this bounce, which we talked about that as well, got the perfect setup to go up into the danger zone. That's the Magic Fibo line. Yes, we're breaking it, but we're still in that danger reversal zone, and we're needing of a retracement again. So from this swing point low to the current swing point high, we're watching this zone. You see my 618 is around 18.3. My 786 is 17.5 area. And we could reverse somewhere around this 18.8, somewhere in this bigger box. 0.5, 618, 786. So we could stretch this up into this zone as we made a new high right now. But be careful. Could we just go blowing off, make a slight higher high, and we get a big reversal? Yes. I prefer to get the three-wave correction in here. So I still want to see same type of market move. We get a nice three-wave correction into this zone, which again, we're sitting at 21. We're talking upwards of about 3,000 points or so of a correction. That's pretty substantial. Then we look for the blow off top, and this would be ideal. Salivate country, if we can get down this 18 range in a three-wave move, that would set up a good 5,000 point move ish back to 23 up as 26. That could turn in as much as 8,000 point move from 18 to 26. Big move. But it's all about, do we get a three-wave or a five-wave? So keep that in mind. And I suspect this is going to push us out into summer. We're into May. So we're talking three-wave correction. Maybe we get there in June, July. Could be a little quicker in the end of June, maybe July, or even the beginning of fall. And then as we go September, October, November, December, the last Santa Claus rally per se, we get the push toward the end of the year. So this correction could take a few weeks to do this, or it could push out a couple of months to do it. but I'm still looking for the opportunity, just like this one right there. We got our perfect opportunity to go where? Right into the zone, like a heat-seeking missile. So we do it again, get this three wave now, sets up the big move to this blow off top. Amen. What's the likelihood we just keep going? It could happen. But if we do that, I'm looking for less of this blow off top and more of this slight higher high to then the big one comes and we get this big red arrow coming down. And remember what these targets are. Once we get the Elizabeth, I'm coming to join you, honey, the minimum targets are sitting down here at the Magic Fibo on the monthly. And look at where we stand now between 10, 2, and 11. That's where the Magic Fibo is currently now in the NASDAQ. On ES, that's sitting at that 35, 33, 3,500 zone. And this is the minimum we're looking for. And as we talked many times, going way back to the financial crisis and the dot-com bubble burst trough up here where we double top before we got the big crash into what? Into '09. So this was the dot-com bubble burst and then the 2007 financial crisis. During that period, we might even come all the way back to this prior high. So minimum 35, maybe as low as 15, 16. So I know that's a 2,000 point zone, but this would be the minimum target. And if we're up where we think we're going, that's quite the move. That is a big one. So we're looking over a 60, 50+% move lower. So wherever we go up to 26,000 on Nasdaq. We're talking below 13,000, right? Just looking at where that Magic Fibo is. So more than a 50% decline. And if ES goes up to our 6,600 zone, then we're looking at more than ultimately the 50% decline. Even if we do a 50% decline, that puts us right at the Magic Fibo. So it can't make this stuff up. So this is why I'm talking about at least a 50% haircut, if not greater, and could turn into as much as a 70% ish as we come back to these post dot-com bubble burst high and the financial crisis high. That's that bubble pattern. And what happens when you get ultimately the bubble pattern collapses and crashes? Sometimes you come back to the plateau, and that plateau would put us around 1,500. And you say, there's no way ES can go from 66 to 1,500. Oh, yeah? Could easily happen. But that's what we're looking for in the technical picture, at least the Magic Fibo on a monthly. Everybody good so far? So ES, NASDAQ, still looking at the Magic Fibo. Russell, we almost reached the Magic Fibo, so you know my target's below that as well. Down here, that 140 for IWM, down to 140, 120 zone. Be careful on that one as well. What are we doing? We're going right into, I guess I got it over here already set up and there. We're right at this resistance zone, and I'm looking for this to give us the correction back down. And remember, even if we go the blow off top route now, where ES goes and makes a new high, NASDAQ goes and makes a new high, I only expect this to go up a little bit higher toward that 230 range, maybe. And we're at 208. So this thing is setting up big time. Look out below. And this is a good opportunity to look for this thing to get rejected from here. What if we get what I'm looking for? I'm looking for that three wave correction. Well, the same rule would apply here. You go from the swing point low to the current swing point high, and we're looking for a retracement in a three wave manner for us to move back toward this 186, maybe 180 zone. Then we get the blow off tops where ES goes to 64.66. NASDAQ goes from that 23 to 26,000 range. And what does IWM do? It goes up to this 230, 220 to 230 range after correction. We get a three wave down, we get the blow off top, and I don't expect us to make all time new highs on the Russell. I expect we're going to end up with that lower high and then a lower low. And wherever this turns from, and again, I'm looking for one shorter one now to set up a much bigger one later, right? Everybody good? So I don't think we're just going to run up here and die. Well, it's possible. If we do the SPX 2007 type thing, where we go break a new all-time high just by a touch, then that would run us into this zone. Now, then we get the 140, 120, or we get the correction now I'm looking for, where ES, NASDAQ, everybody does a little correction. Bitcoin gives us a little correction and then sets up the fall blast off into the fall end of the year. This would bring us up to this danger zone, which would be somewhere around that 230 to 220 range. So either way, we grind up there now. I'm looking for the big one, or we do a three wave correction, followed by then we get up into that danger zone. I'm looking for the big one down, and the big one is going to be what? That is that 140 to 120 zone. That is way down here. Amen? Everybody with me? So do we get this correction first, followed by that blow off top? And again, blow off top means on the others, all-time highs. On this one, I think this is the blow off top zone. And then we go down to 140 to 120. And that could even go lower if we don't hold that zone. But that's a big move from 220 down to 120. Huge move. Amen? More than 50%, obviously. All righty. So be careful. Any questions on what we're seeing in the markets? All looks rosy, doesn't it? Woohoo! What about that? This is still danger zone. Let's see where we close today. My humble opinion, we're going to do this. Then we're going to go breaking all-time highs. If I'm wrong, and this keeps going, be cautious because I don't think that blow off top is by hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of points like I'm looking for after this correction. Yes, my 6,600 is kind of my sweet spot reversal point. I've been thinking about that zone for quite some time. And do we kind of do make new all-time highs, slight higher highs like in 2007 to set up the big one? Or do we get this correction setting up the next big push into the fall early next year, perhaps? And then we get the bigger one. I hope we see this method. This is what I would prefer to see because, again, this is salivate country to buy down here to set up the tone. We're going to move over 1,000 points higher. NASDAQ is huge. We get the same type of correction. We move down about 3,000 points and we get to around that 18 zone. And that sets up 18 going to 23. That's 5,000 plus points and could push this thing up to like 8,000 points. Wow, that's quite the move as well. Amen. So be extremely careful right now. We got to where we need it to be. We need to see the correction. We're even doing a little bit extra, but it's still within the danger zone. So when do we think we're going up here? We got to take that swing point up here out, 22.3 area. I mean, still a ways to go to get there. So this is what I'm telling you. I don't see us just going up here, making a slight higher high. The chances of that is lower than we get a correction sooner. Amen. And that's the three wave I'm looking for. So I can't warn you and caution you enough to take your profits. Be careful. And I would not be loading up now expecting this thing just to go exploding straight up in a nonstop fashion. That's when the market gets extreme greed, and then we're going to see it anyway. So be careful. All right. All right. Let's continue. What about Black Gold Texas Tea, the Beverly Hillbillies? We're at a critical zone in this one as well. I do see oil prices going higher, but is this the beginning of that breakout, or do we need one more flush? Technically speaking, and looking at this picture, this thing could be over and we go breaking out. But first things first, we got to get out of this zone. We're testing the prior swing point. We got to get above the magic Fibo, and we got to get above this swing point. So we got 3 layers we have to get through before we open the door going up to 90, maybe even 100. Is this the beginning, or do we get one more flush followed by that move? I definitely think it's coming. I'm the proponent. We definitely think it's coming. Amen. Do we get the correction first, or do we just start breaking out now? I think on the chart, looking at all this looks better to get that one last push to make a new low, and then we get the big push. We know the software is setting up. We've been talking about this for quite some time now. The monthly, the weekly, the MPA PE5 version 5.0 software is setting up. My weekly's been engaging and disengaging, kind of grinding in this low. Monthly's way down here, starting to set the tone. We got a daily moving back toward oversold and now depressurizing a little bit. But just like I said last time, when this started to turn up, I thought we'd see another slingshot down. My daily's turning back up. Are we going to get another one down? I'm leaning more that way because we still got to get above the magic Fibo. Maybe we go rallying up to there. Then we get a daily cycle down. The weekly pushes lower. The monthly continues to grind a little lower, but it is setting up the bigger move. Now, I won't tell you, Emil and others, that this can't be the bottom and we're ready to go do it. Sure, we can, but we got a lot to prove before we do it. And be careful on this because, again, I think we're likely going to end up slingshotting over. And even if we rally up into this cloud area, the magic Fibo, then I'm looking for a daily cycle down because the technical picture still needs a new lower low. That would make this chart look a lot better for our big move higher into this 90 to 105 zone we've been looking for. Are we going to get it sooner or are we going to get it a little bit later? I think we need one more push. I was pretty close on this one, saying the same thing. We didn't quite, when we broke 60, I thought we'd go to 50. We didn't quite get it, and we stopped there, and here we go. We're still at a lower high, so what happens when you get lower high? Typically, we're due for a lower low. That's what I'm looking for. Amen? So what if I can get exactly what I'm looking for? This is salivate country. If we can get to 50 bucks or lower, man, that's a huge buying opportunity. Massive buying opportunity. And if we get below 50, we could turn into a double. And that's the monthly setting up, the weekly setting up, the daily setting up. Well, Gary, it's all looked like it could potentially be set. Sure, this could go breaking out, but I want to see before I start salivating, I'm getting up here. I want to see us break above the magic Fibo, come back and retest it before I think we're going to start zooming up here. Amen. So I won't say you better go short now because it's going tumbling down to 50 bucks. But I would say be sure you're taking your profits. You're in a position of authority. You leave a little something, something on the table, perhaps, but we might get a little push higher. But even if we get that, when we got that push to here, what happened? We went down. We didn't get there. We went down. We might get one more push and a bigger three-wave correction. So then we get that bigger last five-wave down to set up that 50 and lower for the big one. Back up. Any questions on that? So in closing on black gold Texas T, be aggressively taking profits off of this bounce. Yes, we might grind a little bit higher, but we still got to take out the prior swing point. Why is this zone struggling right now? It matches our May of 2023, right there, that prior low. And we're grinding back up into that prior low territory. So this fitting for us to get one more push lower, as this was strong support for a long time until it wasn't. We retested it once to push lower. Now I think we could even test it one more time before we do what? Get that flush down to 50. 50, 40-ish zone, as you can see right there. 49-ish. So be careful. Amen? So that's why I think this is a good time for us to start reversing. And the big resistance zone is going to be from where this is, that May of 23 low right there, from the breakout high, all-time high to this low, not all-time high, but this 131 zone, or I guess it is all-time high. And then we look for this to push back towards 50, probably holding below this 64 zone. Even if we get a little bit more push into the Magic Fibo, which is a few points higher, I still want to see one more push. And why do I keep saying that? Because if we get it, right? If we get this push and we get rejected somewhere between the Magic Fibo and this current swing point low from May 2023, we get the push lower. This is definitely salivate country for us to go up into a 90 to 105 zone. Amen? Any questions? So again, this might be the beginning of that. It could be. But we got a huge zone from this May 2023 low up to the current Magic Fibo line on the daily chart that we could get this push lower at any moment. If we get it, ideally love to see a three-wave correction out of that down to 50 area or a little bit lower. 50 and lower is buy country, in my humble opinion, for us to then go up substantially higher and visiting the 90 to 105 zone. So I think we're headed here. I think we're going to go up into this zone. Is it now and we go up there? Maybe. I think a higher percentage is this is going to get rejected and we make a new low to clear up all of that overlapping chopping price action one more time before we go breaking out. Amen? Because since we made, if this was going to be the low, that doesn't look very bullish. It's still overlapping. After this, we broke the low I was looking for. Those of you that have been watching this for some time, we've been talking about this for quite some time. And even this May 2023 low, we talked about all this overlapping, chopping, grinding, grunting action that technically we needed a new low below this low to clear up the chart for us to go up here. Well, since we've done that, it's still overlapping again. So the same reason all this overlapping set up, we needed a new low below here, which we finally got. This overlapping chopping as of late price action is kind of redundant to what we're seeing now, that we're probably going to see one more flush. So either way, we're testing the backside of that from, we broke below, now we're testing as resistance, and we got huge resistance between that and up here at the Magic Fibo around 68. So this is where I think we're going to get a reversal out of here. Love to see it three waves. Love to see it come down toward 50. And if we get it, Man, that is a huge buying opportunity in my humble opinion. Okay? All right, so keep a keen eye on that. Yellow gold to gold. Be careful with gold. Remember, I kind of drew this on the chart, been talking about coming down here. Pay me now, pay me later, pay me sooner than later. But look out. So is it Chinese currency that's going to go under? Is it them selling all their gold reserves that could support their country for what, 12 months, 18 months, something like that? They're struggling. Maybe behind closed door talks, that's why they're willing to do this trade agreement because they know that they're in bad shape. Of course, they're not going to admit it, but something's going on here. But either way, that's what I'm talking about. These technical corrections and pictures, they play out no matter what kind of label they put on it. They tend to always play out. And after this bubble run up, we're due for this. But again, why do I want to see these type of bigger corrections? And if we don't hold up here, we could go even further. Man, that's this buying opportunity. I would load up here. If it goes even lower, load and cost amortize down here because we will get some more upside toward 5,000. But I think we need this. Long overdue. So I'm looking for a lot of this chopping action. We should go lower to about 31, 31.50 is what I'm looking at. Retest these prior highs right there. Come down here, then a three-wave correction up to a lower high, then the big push down into this Magic Fibo on the daily chart. And that would set up a good buying opportunity here. And if we go any lower, here and here, and the lower we go, the more I keep loading because, yes, I do think we're going to 5,000. I've been calling for 3,000. We finally got there. Next up, 5,000. And that's up at these far reaching extensions, but we need this correction. Amen. So be careful. I don't see gold going further down about 31, 31.50. Then maybe we rally up towards 33.50, somewhere in that zone. And then we start heading back down toward this 29, 28 zone. So this is where I think we're headed. And this could take weeks, this could take months. But the timing is the toughest part, not the location of where we're ultimately going. That's based on Fibonacci extensions, retracements, Elliott wave. I use all the above, and the MPA PE5 version 5.0 software. Speaking of the software, when we look at gold, come over here to gold, and we have the daily beginning to engage, disengage. That's why I think there's more downside. My weekly is heading down, hit more downside. My monthly is beginning to feel the pressure of turning over. So, yes, I can draw the Picasso for you. That's the Tucson in the weeks and months to come as we move through 2025, 2026. I'm really not looking for a monthly cycle down, right? I'm just looking for this to depressurize, to slingshot higher. And how do we get from this 28, 27, whatever pullback and push up toward 4 or 5,000 zone? That is via slingshot. Just like we've been doing for quite some time. Look at this big correction. The trend momentum's moved over, but look where money flow was. It never made it to oversold. And we talked about that years ago. We were going to 3,000 and how we were going to get there. We were going to start cycling from overbought and then start slingshotting higher and higher and higher and higher. And this baby would grind its way into 3,000. Well, we did it. Slingshot, 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 slingshot. Worked our way. Now, again, I'm not looking for a monthly cycle down. I'm just looking for another slingshot, not quite that big. Another slingshot back up. This will turn down a little bit, then turn back up. You know, it has been doing bobbing and weaving as we go. But I do think when we get this correction, we're due to go much higher in the years to come. So I'm still a long-term gold bull person, certainly, but we need that correction we're unfolding right now. And the software setting up beautifully. We got a monthly beginning to hook and pinch. We have a weekly hooked and cross. We got steep slope angle separation. And we have a daily highest probability going to do what, Mr. Tucson? When a weekly hooks and crosses, the daily cycles. When a weekly hooks and crosses, what? The trend momentum cycles and the PAI cycles. And we're not there. Look where we came down, where you think, well, the trend momentums are close, but look, money flow never made anywhere near. Red and blue got down here temporarily, but green has not. So this is screaming, we're going down, we're going down, we're going down. Weekly hook and cross has already spoken. That's why when I talked about that bounce the other day, we were due for that correction and it went to a 618 zone, tested it to fail, and now we're going down to the Magic Fibo. Hint, 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 be careful that I don't think it's just going to go straight down and plummet straight down here, sure, but this will probably, like we've been doing, engage, disengage. This will probably continue engage, disengage, but ultimately, I'm painting the Picasso. We're going to see this in oversold territory. We're going to see those two in oversold territory, and price is going to be down here at our Magic Fibbo. Amen? And my weekly is going to continue to push. Could this thing turn into several more weeks or even months to get down here? Potentially. And this could turn into where we get the weekly cycle down and the daily will get oversold and start slingshotting lower and lower while the weekly makes its cycle. And that's why when we get to the Magic Fibbo on the daily and it doesn't hold, then it's the weekly that we're likely going to push even a little bit further toward maybe that 25, 2600 level. And that could be the weekly cycle down. Amen. So, what am I watching as we go through this month and the next month? Do we get a PAI hook? Do we get a trend momentum cross? Do we get slope, angle separation? If we do, then the weekly is going to cycle. We don't have it yet. We got a PAI starting to hook. Trend momentums are pinched. At least trend momentum one is pinched. Trend momentum two is starting to flatten out. So this is not a PAI hook and a trend momentum cross yet. But if it gives it to you, like over here, you get a hook, you get a cross, you get green below the red, little angle of separation. So we call that a hook, cross, slope, angle separation. Then the weekly is going to cycle. What does it do? Highest of probabilities. What happened during this point here on the chart? So let me place one of these over here. What happened when we got the PAI hook and the trend momentum cross? That was my weekly moving lower. My weekly moving lower and even slingshotted for a while till it finally bottoms out to start the retracement back up. So we can expect that for weekly to go from overbought to oversold should the monthly give us an official hook and cross. So the beauty of this software is we always know that when a monthly hooks and cross, the weekly cycles. When a weekly hooks and cross, the daily cycles. When a daily hooks and crosses, the 4 hour cycles. When a 4 hour hooks and crosses, the 1 hour cycles. When a 1 hour hooks and crosses, the 30 cycles. On and on. 5 minute hooks and crosses, the 1 minute cycles. Like clockwork. Why is that important? Well, when a monthly hooks and crosses and a weekly cycles, that takes 2 to 5 months. So if I'm buying puts on something I expect to go down, for example, a weekly hook and a monthly hook and a cross down, I'm expecting a weekly to cycle. That could take 2 to 5 months. So if I'm buying options on something, I know I need to push out at least two, more likely pushing the 5 month zone. That's on average 2 to 5 months. A daily takes 2 to 5 weeks. So if I'm looking for a weekly hook and cross, which we have already, that's a PAI hook, that's a trend momentum cross, that's the slope, that's the angle and separation, green below the red. And now we even see the aqua below the yellow on trend momentum 2. That's screaming this daily is going to go to oversold. Hint, hint, hint. And we're not there. We're not there. So look where money flow is, Mr. Tucson. A lot longer to go. Amen. That's why we're going down here. Got it? There you have it. So let's continue. Kind of look at the squiggly line. Maybe we get a little head and shoulders here. We get a shoulder, a little head, and then we get another little shoulder over here, and then we go down. Well, is this the shoulder? That's the beginning of the head. We get another shoulder in here. Well, either way, we're coming down to this zone. That's what I'm looking for. Right there. Minimum. So be careful. I think we're going to go lower. 31, 31, about 31.50 is kind of my sweet spot. So about another $100. Then we're going to go bouncing in a three-wave correction. And I'm looking for the high to lower high. So what would that look like? Let's go over here to the charting platform. So I can move right here and stretch this out a little bit. And I can show you what I'm thinking. That, let me move this way. So I'm looking for a push down from this high, which we're still working on, to the new low, somewhere around 31.50, which again would be that prior zone we topped out, got a pullback before breaking out. So up in this zone, about 31.50 area, kind of where my design is here. So once we get there, Mr. Tucson, what are we looking at coming back up? About a 618 retracement. Yep. So we get down about 31.50 and a three-wave correction back up, looking for this to go toward that 33.50 zone, somewhere like that. Amen. Then what? Another push lower, and it won't just be straight down from 33 to 29, 28 area. It's going to be stair-steppingly lower, but that's kind of the plan. How long does this take? This could take weeks. This could take even months before it's done, before we get down here. That's the toughest part. But the idea that we're going to flush lower and correct to a lower high, then a lower low, we kind of talk about that as stair stepping our way down towards this daily magic fibbo. That's where we're headed. Hint, hint, hint. So we get to 31. Sure, you could even take some buying opportunity from 31 to go back toward that 33, 33.50. Then from there, start to break back down and even some stair steps along the way in here. But this is the ultimate target down here. Amen? All right. So be careful. I don't think we're ready to go breaking out. I definitely think we're coming down this direction, and it might be because China's starting to sell some of their gold. And if they continue that process, that might be what corrects this down, where they just keep unloading more gold that they've been buying and holding for many, many moons. So something's going on in China, obviously. And it could be their fiat currency that causes our markets to crash. And that's what they term, well, it's the global liquidity issue, it's the global economy. Well, remember what we look at for global liquidity. We come up here to the Nikkei. This is going to be important. If we get that three-wave correction from this low to this high, we get the three-wave I'm looking for coming to the support zone. That could set us popping off to all-time high blow off top. Well, looking at this on the bigger scale, the Magic Fibo is we're above it right now. It's very thin right now because of all this overlapping price action. It was sloping upwards when we're running. We started to push lower and it started pushing a little bit lower. Now you can see we're still ticking a little bit lower after this pullback, but it's very thin. We're above it. So maybe we come back to bounce off of that to go breaking highs. So let me stretch that out for you. Do we pull back here to bounce to then go breaking out? But once we start clearing this 40,000 hurdle that we've tested so many times, game on for us to do that blow off top up here in this 45 to 50,000 range. So is it going to be the global liquidity, the China fiat that fails? That Elizabeth, I'm coming to join you, honey. Do we get the blow off top first? We shall see. But ideally, we want to see a three-wave correction out of that to set up the tone for the blow off top. And it should go hand in hand. If this Nikkei goes blowing off, and I use that not to trade it, but just as global liquidity, then it sets the tone. Our markets will get the blow off top. So I don't see Nikkei going up here without our markets getting the blow off top. And I'd like to see a three-wave correction from where it currently stands, just like our markets give us a three-wave correction to set off the bigger blow off top into the end of the year. So we're going to keep an eye on that in the weeks and months to come as well. So any last questions on gold? Be careful. Look for the dip down to 31, another rally probably toward that 33, 33.50 to a lower high, then sets the tone for the push down to this Magic Fibo on the daily chart. Pay me now, pay me later. We're going to visit the Magic Fibo. We haven't been there in quite some time. We came close. We're overdue. That's why I keep saying it was way over here that we finally hit it and actually broke below it. We're long overdue. This bubble pattern needs to come back to reality. And the first is the plateau of this Magic Fibo. We don't hold that. Then it looks at the next plateau and to the 3-day Magic Fibo, the weekly Magic Fibo, and the monthly Magic Fibo down here. So what would happen if we get a big sell off on gold and it comes back down here? That is back the truck up zone. I don't think we're going to get that low. You know, first things first, we got to get to daily. We don't hold that, then we come down to this zone. We don't hold that, we come down to this zone. But that's a lot of breaking and breaking and breaking before we even attempt to look us to go down to 2000. First stop, 29, 28 zone. Been looking for that for some time. This prior swing point breakout right there, right around that 28 zone is what we need to see to set the tone for us to go higher. Amen? So in closing, one more time, this is not just going to go dropping straight down here. I think we're going to get a drop down about 31.50, a correction back to about 33, 33.50, followed by the bigger push down. Amen? All right. Silver. You know how I love silver. I think it's underperforming. It's definitely underperforming gold. I think I've showed you this many times, but I like to remind you that silver is nowhere near the potential of gold's breakout because back in this 2011 area, top into the COVID lows, actually January 16 area, into this January 16 area, not COVID low. But from that high to that low, the topping out in 2011, we went breaking out all-time highs and we started blowing doors. We call that the Fibonacci ladder extension. We hit the 1272, we hit the 1618. This is where my 3000 zone came in. I said, we're definitely going there. And then eventually we're going where? All the way up to my 5,000, 6,000 range eventually. Yeah, I do think we're going to get there on a lower scale. Here's my 5,000 target on the higher extensions, but we need the correction first before we get there. But you can see how from that 11 high to the correction low, we're up at the 2618 extension. Wow, right? Look at silver. It's anemic. We're just trying to break the 618 area. Nowhere near the extensions. And look where that 272 extension is, 2618, up here at 111. Long way to go. From that same high to low, we're nowhere near those extensions. Nowhere near it. That's why I say it's so well underperforming. And the catch up, silver's going to go exploding. Well, I like SLV. And my target, I can almost write this down as a guarantee that silver will reach $60 to $70 sooner than later, but no later than later. Could it be this year? Hmm, probably not this year because we're going to get that blow off top, in my humble opinion. And then when Elizabeth, I'm coming to join you, honey, and our markets start tanking, I think that's when gold and silver are going to get their next big run up. Risk aversion, when the markets are tanking and all is, the markets are crashing. What are we going to do? People run to gold and silver. This is going to explode. What else do we have going for it? From the high to the low, we have this extension. We already broke from the high to the low. We broke to 618. We're still above it right now, right? Still above it. So we have a 75% chance we're going to 60. 70 plus percent chance we're going to 70. I think this is a given, right? And if we start to catch up with where gold is reaching extensions, look at SLV. We're up here at that 2618. That sounds impossible. Silver at $500? Well, yeah, when gold's at 5,000, why couldn't silver be at 500? Seems logical, right? We're at 3,000 and we're nowhere near 300. I mean, I'd love to get up here, but it's underperforming. So what happens when it starts to catch up? 120? That's not out of the question. So this is why this conservative target is going to happen. We have it on the charts. We broke the 618. We got a 75% chance. 70 plus, we're going into this zone. 75 at 60. 70 plus at 70. That's why I think this is a given. So, do we get gold's pullback? Where's silver going to go? Silver is going to go, hopefully, in my humble opinion, 25 and lower. So SLV should come down to 25 and lower is the plan. And when it does, this is my back the truck up zone because we're going to 60 to 70, right? $60 slash $70. That's a given. How much lower did we go? I cannot see silver holding up or gold goes down several $100s to revisit our Magic Fibo. When we do, that's going to push us down into the 25 or lower. I currently have junk bids sitting down here and resting orders for us to buy SLV shares, add more shares, that is, at 25. And the lower it goes, the more I want to add, because no matter if we get to 25, 24, 23, whatever, somewhere down in this zone, then we're going to go what? Double plus to get to 60, 60, 70 zone. Amen. How cool is that? That we could get a dip into 25 and lower, and then we're going to end up at 60 to 70. I'm banking on that, literally. So I'm looking to buy SLV and add a bunch more down at 25 and lower, and shooting for 60 to 70. Highest of highest of highest probabilities. How long is it going to take to get there? I'm just buying shares. I don't care if it takes 6 months, a year, 2 years, doesn't really matter. I'm just buying shares and I'm going to unload some shares when I get up there. And we're looking at least a double, maybe even a triple by the time we're done. Amen? And I don't think it's going to take decades to get up here. I think it could take certainly 2026 seems a logical point. When we start to get that Elizabeth, I'm coming to join you, honey, and the market start tanking and we start moving down. Remember our little 1875 chart where they predicted these, and they're all by predictions. I do everything but predict. You get started on that one. But their anticipated move in 2026 was going to be moving down. That's where my Elizabeth are coming to join you, honey. Here comes the big one comes into play. So when the markets are doing that big move down and the Dow, Nasdaq, Russell, S&P start going down to their monthly magic fibos at least, that's when gold and silver are going to start ripping up to these targets. So I'm thinking sometime in 26, maybe 27. So again, I'm not buying options on this. So you could, but I would push it out as far as I could go. If I'm going to buy options on this, then I'm going to push it out as far as I can go. Could happen in 26, could be 27, I don't know. But it is going to happen. Mark my words. SLV will be sitting up at $60 to $70 range. Got it? And I do think when gold gets the correction we're talking about, which is extremely high probability in my humble opinion, that silver is going to go to 25 and lower, this SLV is. And when it does, do a Jim Cramer button. Buy, 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 buy. That's about the only thing I agree at that has sound effects. But the Jim Cramer effect, if he says buy something, you should sell it. And if he says sell, then you buy it. The inverse effect, as we laugh at. But anyway, I digress, but we're going to 60, 70. No ifs, no buts, no ands, no exceptions. I think we're going to go down to 25 and lower. Then we're going to go ripping up into the 26, 27 calendar year and start ripping toward it 67. We break that, then we got 100 unavailable. We start looking at 150, but minimum 60 to 70. That is on the chart, and that comes from way back when we see this high to low. Here's the target zone, highest of highest probability. And we not only have a daily candle body, we got a weekly candle body, we got a monthly candle body, and several of all the above screaming we're going up here. So Harold, one more time, we're going to get a dip into 25 and lower, in my humble opinion, as gold goes down to visit the Magic Fibo on the daily chart. So remember, what is all that? That's my anticipated move I drew out and kind of the stair-step approach as we head down at least toward the daily Magic Fibo. So that's why I'm saying if we get down to 25, I'm buying. What if gold then breaks this and goes lower toward 2,500? Then silver would go even lower. So I'll buy some at 25. I'll buy some at whatever, 20. The lower silver goes, the more I'm loading up to get to 60, 70. So there is no hold point that I would say, well, if we keep going so low, then silver's not going to 67. It's going. So gold's likely coming here. Maybe we go a little bit lower, but I would buy some here and buy some more there. But it's going to go up to 3 when break the all-time highs again. We're going to go to 4 and 5,000 long term. Is it 26, 27? Do we get there during the big Elizabeth, I'm coming to join you, honey, as we get the big market crash? And over the next few years, we get that push lower. This thing over the next few years could get that big push higher. Yeah, I could see that. Risk aversion. And when the markets are tanking, people want to run somewhere. And where's that? Gold. So that's why I think we're definitely going up into these extensions up here. But we need this correction first before we can get up there. Got it? So fine tune this down to about 3150. Correction in a three wave up to about 3335. Then we start grinding our way back down into later this year. Maybe it's a few months. Maybe it pushes it later into the fall. We shall see. But as we start pushing this correction, then when the markets start topping and cranking and hit, Elizabeth, I'm coming to join you, honey. That's when I expect gold and them to bottom and start reversing for the next big push. Any questions on that? And again, SLV's target is 60.70. And I think we're going to correct down here to 25 and lower. That's the plan. I have resting orders waiting to buy shares. And if gold breaks the daily Magic Fibo and goes to where 25, 2600 instead of that 2800, and we go a little bit lower, then silver probably push even a little bit lower. Maybe we go down to 20 bucks. We get to some of these further extensions down here. But the lower we go, the more I'm adding to my position. And if we can get down to 20, for example, that's a guaranteed triple in my humble opinion. Why? Because we're going to go to 60. So this is a big buying opportunity. And I can't wait to get this final push lower to set the tone for this thing to go ripping higher as we move into 26, 27. That's the plan. Let's continue. Let's look at we're kind of jumping around a little bit today, but what about our Tesla? How about Tesla and TSLL? Looking pretty good, isn't it? And yes, even if we get the correction I'm looking for in the markets, Tesla might need to come back down and revisit the Magic Fibo or get us a little bit deeper retracement. But I'm definitely looking for a push toward 500 and above, pushing even 600. When what? Early June is what they're teasing about their cybercab release. And this could start pushing that movement higher. And I do expect when we get the blow off top with the markets, Tesla's going to get a big push higher and push toward that 600 range. That is the plan. But be careful if you think this is just going to go straight up. We still got a few more weeks in this month before the announcement. And they've been teasing sometime early in June, but you know how announcements can go. Maybe they push it back a little bit. Then we have earnings out here in late July. So we got some activity into this, into the quarter. With their announcements, I'm expecting this thing to start ripping higher. Do we rip up into earnings and we get a much earlier rip? Or do we kind of chop in here into earnings and then post earnings toward the end of the year when our markets are doing the blow off top? NASDAQ does the blow off top, pulls the Magnificent Seven blow off top, and we go ripping up there. But the plan is, as you well know, I own TSLL and we loaded some more at 6 and we're starting to double our money already. That's not too shabby. Well, I'm looking for a lot more. And this thing should go into the 40s when we're done. That is the plan. Maybe as high as 50s up here. So I'm still extremely bullish TSLL for my Tesla 2X shares. Amen. Hopefully you're taking advantage of that. Why? Because the last time we brought to your attention was in October of 24. And right here, October 2020, October 24, right there of 24, Tesla's expected to hit 500. Consider the TSL trade. Man, I keep reminding you about that, but that's why I'm so adamant we're in another one. We're in the midst of this right now. And as we're watching this, this is probably the bottom, and we're due to go ripping just like our call over here in October. I got my pullback I was looking for, and it went to my extensions beautifully. Right to them, ladies and gentlemen. Went to that extension from the high to the low. When we got that pullback, we talked about it going and making a nice run because Tesla was expected to go to 500. We just missed 500, and we still reached our extension up here. What a thing of beauty. So now we got a new high to low. We still got to get above this 14 price, which we're getting awfully close. And what happens when that comes into play? Actually, I didn't want to move that. Put that back where it was. I want to zone in on this one. So we can see where these new extensions come in from, and it looks like I got a bunch of them on here. So let me remove a lot of these and replace this for you. So from the current swing point high for TSLL to the current swing point low, we still got a little ways to go before we get to our next extensions, but notice where they're located. 4651. 4651. So this is where I think we have the highest probability we're going, and we're not even from the high to low. We hadn't even crossed my 28 zone. So even if you bought it at 28 and you go to 4651 zone, you'd be very happy. Well, we talked about buying it when we were getting that retracement, and I even talked about when it was around that $6 range. Man, you need to be loading up. This thing's getting ready to explode. To where? Bingo. Toward that 40-ish, maybe as high as 60. Amen? So I'm a big proponent of TSLL. And if you've been tuning in, not only last October did we blow doors on that one from about $9 to 40 plus, 41 and change. Well, this one's going to go from 6 to about 46. That's the plan, and if not higher. I'm loving it. And I do own my TSLL as a disclaimer. No buy, sell, to hold. I can't tell you what to do. I'm not a certified financial planner. I just have a God given talent to read and interpret price on a chart. And this thing is screaming. And what was the reason we called it? How many millions and millions of shares were the big dogs and the BlackRock and all of those buying a Tesla when it was doing this? It's just inevitable. And the technical picture says the same thing. Amen. What about Apple? Apple working on it. You kind of moving up our chart. Where's my good on this one? Uh, no, maybe it's on this one. Check something real quick. Our yes, market cap. Apple's now in position number 2 behind gold. Microsoft is, I think this is a, no, Apple should be ahead right now. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Microsoft moved ahead. So Apple fell down a little bit. Microsoft moved ahead. They've been jockeying between Apple and Microsoft for many years. Who's the biggest man in the land? Highest market cap. Nvidia might even make another push. It's back into the 3 trillion club. We have 3 of the 3 trillion club up here. And when we get those blow off tops, people don't think this is very serious, but in order for Microsoft to double, to get like to 900 to double, you need another 3.3 trillion. That's a lot of money. But somebody like Meta down here, we only need half of that much, and we can double 1.6 instead of 3.3, get half of that, and Meta could double from 6 to 1200. Yeah, I could see that. A lot easier to get 1.6 trillion from somewhere than it is 3.3. But that's why when you get these huge, massive companies thinking, well, they're just going to keep doubling and doubling and doubling. Well, in order to double NVIDIA price to 250 or 260 zone, we need another 3 trillion. Apple to go to 400, we need another 3 trillion. That's a lot of money. So some of these further down, like Tesla, much easier for this one to double to 600, only a trillion. That's where I think this is likely to move. And this is one of my hot ones right now, like I've been talking about for this right here. We only need $1 trillion to double this price versus doubling. Amazon needs 2.2 trillion, Microsoft 3.3 trillion to double. So this is my juggernaut down here, Mr. 15 Tesla with its new announcement in June, plus the push and the market cycle we're talking about. This thing is due to go ripping that 500-600 zone, and I could easily see this joining the 2 trillion club up here where Bitcoin is currently sitting. Amen? And that's the plan for, let's just see how we move up in the coming months. Tesla starts leapfrogging some of these names and it starts moving into the 2 trillion range, and we start pushing the price into the $500 to $600 range. Got it? If we get to 600, we're going to be right at that 2 trillion. That's the plan. Okay? Any questions? So Apple still below the zone here. Yes, I think we could get a blow off top. We got a little bit more from the recent high to low. We got to get out of this zone above the Magic Fibo. Then we could start looking for 261, 270. Netflix, be careful with this one. We already reached some of those extensions. We're due for some sort of pullback at some point. Sure, could this go on with the blow off top up to 13 area? Yeah, I could certainly get there. And what happens when Elizabeth, I'm coming to join you, honey? A lot of these big dogs are going to take that big hit, but along with the rest of the market. But you can see why this is potentially setting up for blow off tops. That Netflix is up. We can go through some of the Magnificent Seven. Amazon, it's starting to clear the Magic Fibo. We're testing from the high to the low. We're right in the zone from that high to this low. That's 618. If this continues during that blow off top, we're looking for this to go up to that 250 to 270 range. Amen. Watching this closely. So what we may see during the correction we're talking about is some of these start correcting back toward their Magic Fibos that are bounced above before we go breaking out. And I'd love to see my correction and what we went through, ES, NASDAQ, etc. Get a correction. These come down with the correction. And then what would be the low we're looking for? From this low to the current high when the correction starts, we're looking at the 618786 zone. So let me see if I can grab this guy and drag him over there and just bring the tension. Oh, not that. Didn't want to always grab the wrong thing and move this over here. So this would put us into this zone right about there. So at some point, do we go blow off top first, or do we get the correction followed by the blow off top in the late fall? That would set up perfectly if we get the correction down in the zone. So somewhere a correction down about 200, as low as maybe 180, 175 zone, somewhere in the zone. So the correction zone will be the Magic Fibo down to the 618, no more than the 786. But I think this is going to be a tough zone to break. This Magic Fibo down into here. So this zone should be very strong support for us to retrace in a three-wave correction, followed by that move into fall in toward the end of the year. But here's my target, that 250 to 270 range for Amazon. And then we look at Microsoft. Microsoft already has the 480, 490 in its target. From the low to the high, we've seen that move. And even as we got to the extension down here, still think we're headed to this target zone, but we could draw a fresh new one. If you look at that high to this low, we're looking at still about the same zone. See it? So this is why I didn't place it, because it's basically the same area. That 440, 480, excuse me, 440, 484, 480 zone up to this maybe 490 area right in there. See it? So I'm going to remove that just so there's too many lines on here. But this is why that 480, 490, I think we're definitely headed there. So what type of correction will we look for? A little correction, maybe a three-wave down to Magic Fibo. Maybe we come down a little further toward that 618, which again, from the recent low to the current high, We're looking at that 618. So with Microsoft, we got the Magic Fibo, and we have the 618 zone as low as maybe about 370. So a little three-wave correction into here. Ideally, again, I think this is going to be tough, Mr. Tucson other, between that Magic Fibo and that 618 off of the low, that we're likely to get about three-wave correction into this before we go breaking out toward that 480, 490, maybe up here to 5-ish. That's the blow off top. Any questions? So we can go through NVIDIA, same kind of thing. From the recent low to high, we're within the danger zone for a correction. Yes, I think we're going to go ahead and blow off top 160, 172, maybe as high as 190. So is this a given? No, we got to get the three-wave correction in here. We got to hold from the low to the high, the 618 zone. And then we go breaking out to this 160, 170, maybe as high as 190 into late fall. That fits the tone. How's NASDAQ going to push into 23 to 26,000? We get the big seven to start doing their respective blow off tops. Any questions? And I think we looked at Apple a second ago, but yeah, we have the same scenario, 260, 270. We got to get through this zone. Still got to get above the Magic Fibo, but I still think there's a good chance it's going to make a move up to that 260, 270. Could potentially go near 300, maybe, but still got to get above the Magic Fibo to start. So what would this one look like? Maybe we go into here, we get our little three-wave correction, come back to the support zone to then go popping. But we're probably going to need all of these to participate. For ES to get to 64, 66, for NASDAQ to get to 23 to 26,000, we're going to need Apple to do it. We're going to need Microsoft to do it. We're going to need Amazon to do it. Tesla to go to its 500, 600 push. And then, of course, Goog. How about the Goog? He's a magnificent seller. He's got a long way to prove. And even after blowing expectations and earnings, they what? Had a big correction. And lo and behold, what did they do? They held the 618786. So I look for Goog to continue to push up toward there. A little three-wave correction, then start blowing. So we're probably going to need Goog to start going up to that 208, 218 or higher level as well. So we need all of the big seven, magnificent seven, to participate for us to get that blow off top. So let's circle the wagons. If you joined us late or you're not part of the conversation, be careful. We're at the top of the danger zone. We hadn't closed the daily candle yet. I do think we're going to get a blow off top, but ideally I'd like to see a three-way correction coming out of this into a deeper correction down about 53 to 5,000. Be extremely careful. If you took this bounce, we talked about it, take some profits. Be happy you got that because we need one of these. And we hope we're going to see the three-wave correction, not a five-wave. If it turns into a five-wave followed by a three-wave, then no blow-off tops. And this up here would be off the table. Now, if we get the three-wave correction, then we expect to get the blow-off top. 64, 66 is kind of my zone. If this just keeps going, be extremely careful because of what 2007, we made a higher high by 20 points and then we had the big crash. So if this baby just keeps grinding higher and higher and higher, I'm really not looking for us just to keep grinding straight up from where we are, straight to 6,600, then the crash. I think we'll get a slight higher high, maybe 62-ish. Then we get the crash. So that's why, Harold, I want to see that three-wave correction come down to 53, 55,000 zone to bounce. And this is salivate country to buy in the 53 area and shoot for 63 minimum. Likely going to push more towards 66. So mark my words, my humble opinion is we're going to get a correction into this before we go blowing off top. If we don't, this is danger zone and we might get a new all-time high, but then the big one's coming sooner than late fall, early next year. If we don't, and we get the three-wave correction I'm looking for, this is what I'm thinking is going to happen, then this is extreme, like this was right there. I talked about that. Buy this, and we're going to go there. We did it perfectly. We're kind of blowing extension up to the 786. It looks like, woohoo, we're going. It's a done deal. Well, I want to see a three-wave correction back toward a 618 retracement. Then it's a done deal. This would be extremely high probability. Three-wave correction down. We get into somewhere 5,300-ish, 54 to 5,000 somewhere, even if you get the 54 now, because we did move higher. And I'm expecting this probably go a little bit more before the reversal. But any moment, we're going to start correcting. Then when we get down to that 54, my ideal target is 53 to 5,000, but maybe 54 to 5,000, then this is buying opportunity to shoot for about 1,000 points. Amen? NASDAQ is the exact same, a little bit different numbers. We're at the We're at the top of the danger zone before we get up to 23 to 26,000. If this baby just keeps creeping up, we probably won't go so high. We're going to get a slight higher high, then the crash. Otherwise, we definitely want to see a three-wave correction. Hint, hint, hint. Be careful. Then when we get a correction down about 18, 19,000, 18,000 zone, that's a beautiful buying opportunity for multiple thousand points higher. We get to 18, we're talking 5,000 minimum. Beautiful move. So I love to see this correction first to then set up the big push. And last but not least, IWM, be careful because even with the blow off tops by the Dow, the NASDAQ, everybody but the Russell, this one is likely just to get up to my 230-ish range on IWM. And bottom line is whether we do the correction like I'm thinking, then we get the blow off respective top. That would represent blow off top would be up in this zone. So anytime I see IWM in the 220 and above, I'm looking for a long-term put spread down, and we're going to be targeting what? Below 160, that is, 1600 on Russell, but below 160 over here. So my put spread will be pushed out as far as I can go, and I'm looking at pushing down to 140, 120 zone, minimum 160. So there's plenty of ways to buy a put spread on this long term, where we expect this to go definitely below 160, and my target is 140 to 120. Even when we're up at 230, we get to 220, 230 or higher. The higher we go, the more I just back the truck up for a put spread to come way down into the 160 to 120 zone. Must break this low. I've been saying it for a long time. Before we go breaking all-time highs, we're going to break below 160. We tested up there, and lo and behold, we almost got below 160, but we're in the process of working it. So what my expectation is, blow off top on this is to go into a lower high to set up the lower low, which puts us into the 140 to 120 zone. Amen? All right. So take care. God bless you. We love and appreciate you. And I guess I'm a little bit forgot about my crypto. Bitcoin, just let me do that real fast. I'm kind of forgot about my Bitcoin. I expect this danger zone is going to get a little bit of a correction in here. Maybe it's Bitcoin that comes back down to the Magic Fibo. We broke above it. We went to that danger zone we talked about. Likely going to get a little pullback. Maybe it's Bitcoin that leads our markets to get the corrections, etc. And we get a correction and then we go blasting off. But just quick summary, we're going to 150 to 175 is the target zone. The goal is to get there by late fall, somewhere between September, October-ish. And then we're going to look for the crypto winter to follow. So what we're looking for from the bigger picture is Bitcoin's going to go down, this is real brief, but we're going to go down into our buy zone. I guess it's out on a weekly chart, into this nibble zone into late 2026. What we found with Bitcoin after each halving every 4 years, we get a crypto winter low followed by a 12 to 18 month post halving high. Then you get the next low, and it happens every 4 years. So we top out in 21. We're going to top out in 25. Then we bottomed in 22. We're going to bottom in late 26. So when we start hitting late 26 and Bitcoin comes from 150, 175 down to this 50 to 30,000 range, this is where you start buying, just like we were selling you over here in 22. Bitcoin below 20,000 is a crime that you can buy Bitcoin at 20,000 because we knew it was going to go to that 150. We got up to 109, 110, so we're not quite finished, but the bulk of the move is definitely over. And then we're going to come into the fall. And then when we finally top and reverse from 150, 175, we're going to come down about 50,000, 30,000 range to set up the next halving in 2028. So just like we were buying in 22, we're going to be selling in the fall this year in 25 up at 150, 170. We're going to buy in the 50 to 30,000 range in late 26, and we're going to sell in late 2029, and we should be up in the hundreds of thousands of dollars for the next cycle. So we're going to do the same low to high, higher low. Expect it to go near that 175 area. We'll do the same when we get our high to our new low in 26, and we'll set the tone for what the expectations are in the hundreds of thousands as we move into late 2029. Amen. So what have we learned? Every time Bitcoin went through a halving and it got its all-time high, you get a crypto winter low, and it's been every 4 years from the prior low. So we bottomed in 22, we bottomed in 17, 18, we bottomed in 14. So, and then every top, 13, 17, 21, 25. So you do the math. Bottom in 14, 18, 22, 26. And then what? We're going to buy in 26, and I'm already giving you a target zone, 50,000 and lower. Start nibbling. And then just like we did here for the 20,000 and lower was a huge bargain for you to get up to where we're going to go and where we are. Yep, same thing. Rinse and repeat. So take care. God bless you. We love and appreciate you. And as we like to close, that's it and that's all. We'll see you tomorrow.